So last time we are seeing the sacrifice of the Purusha, the being himself sacrificing for the progress of this creation, and that is symbolized, that is epitomized, that is quintessenced in the crucifixion of Christ. So we have got a full description of the crucifixion of Christ, symbolizing the sacrifice of the Purusha, how he enters into this creation by sacrificing himself and takes the entire burden of this creation to take it forward, to make it move forward, you see. And in that context, we have, let's quickly see all this thing about it is finished, the dread mysterious sacrifice. That is the biblical scene of Christ getting crucified, offered by God's martyred body for the world. And again, here the important thing is body, martyred body. See, it is not his soul, is not this, it's not that. It is directly in the context of the physical, directly in the context of the physical that a sacrifice is made. Actually, the whole of Savitri at all the crucial stages raises the issue of the physical, raises the issue of the physical. Right in the very first canto, Savitri herself awakes to the mission of her soul here by experiencing the body's pain. Body's pain. It is that which awakes her. Yes, Savitri, we have come for this purpose. Body's pain. Your martyred body is becoming now again prominent in that sense, you see. And in fact, the whole thrust is that you have to deal with the body, with the physical, with the material. He carried a cross on which man's soul is nailed. His escort with the curses of the crowd, insult and jeer are his right's acknowledgement. 2 thieves slain with him mock his mighty death. Well, that is the famous scene of Christ's crucifixion, you see. And then, of course, he says he is carrying the cross on the Via Dolorosa to the top of the hill, and therefore he has trod with bleeding brow the Saviour's way. The Saviour's way is that Dolorosa, Via Dolorosa. That is the Saviour's way. He has to accept the pain of his creation, bear its suffering and all that, and take it forward. And then he has found his identity with God. Faced with the body is a death. Again, body is death. It is not soul, it is not vital, it is not physical, it is the death of the body which is important again. Body is death. His soul's vast light. You see. And then, as I said last time, actually, these are the 3 last lines which Sherwin had dictated. His knowledge immortal trans by his death. You see. And then we also saw last time that at this point, Amal wanted to add one more line here, bound to the stake and the flame, or else hewn, quartered on the scaffold as he falls, his crucified voice proclaimed, I am God. Yes, he has identified himself with the with God himself directly. He has identified himself. And therefore, as if any kind of a shout of triumph, he says, yes, I am God. I have attained that Godhood. But he gets a retort. You are identified with God, all right. So what? You are not crucified yourself for that purpose. You have some other thing to do. What about the body? This has gone and identified itself with God. But what about this? It is lying on the cross, hanging there. What do you do for that? What do you do for the body which is now on the cross? And therefore he says, yes, all is God. Peace back, heaven, deathless call. You have to come back here for the sake of the body again. Yes, all is God. Now this is something absolutely Arvindonian. Up to here, I am God, that is the biblical description. But this, yes, all is God. Peace back, heaven's deathless call. That is absolutely Sri Aurobindo's. It is not there at all in the Bible. It is not there at all in the Bible, you see. Now, it is in this context that the meaning of Savitri becomes definite, unique, and in a certain sense, Narad is asserting that uniqueness. Yes, yes, everything is God's creation, physical also. Don't give up physical and walk away from here. We have to do something in the physical also, you see. Yes, all is God. Peace back, heaven's deathless call. So you can't escape that call. Maybe at that moment of time, at that point of time, Christ had no other way. But now Ashtapati is here. Savitri is here. She can't do that. She wanted to go away with her husband and sacrifice herself on the day of his death. When Satyavana would die, she had almost psychologically prepared herself to burn herself on the burning fire of Satyavana's body. She can't do that. She can't disappear. She has to come back here. She has a work to do here, you see. Yes, all is God. That is important, you see. Now, this is also what is called the kenosis of Christ. Kenosis of Christ. Kenosis of Christ means making your will. You are emptying yourself out totally, fully. I am God. Yes, in a way you have emptied out yourself fully, completely. You have emptied. Kenosis, Jesus made himself nothing. He emptied himself that only God's will be. He made himself nothing and only God's will be. That is the theological meaning of kenosis in the Christian theology. And that emptiness is important. So, in a certain sense, you can say that Christ's crucifixion is emptying himself out fully. So that God's will, yes, all is God, is established. By emptying yourself out fully, you have kept yourself open for whatever God wants to happen in it. Whatever happens, that is His will, then which will work, not you anymore. You have to first remove everything from you, empty out yourself fully. So that is a kenosis in a certain sense. Therefore, this is both kenosis and fulfillment of what is the mission, what he is going to do. Christ is emptying himself out fully, keeping himself ready for the will of God to work in him. You want me to be here? Yes, I'll be here. You want me to go away? I'll do whatever like. Your will, your will, your will. That is what he is insisting upon constantly. Now, this is a very significant aspect, and I don't know whether the full implication of this emptying out of this kenosis that all is God is realized, is recognized by the Christian theology. I don't know. They would not, you see. It cannot be, you see. This is something unique in that sense. Means he has really, in a certain sense, updated Christ. see, see, updated Christ. Yes, this is what you see. It has gone beyond Bible also, you see, in that sense. Yes, all is God. Now, there is a very similar situation. Well, actually, I will not exactly call similar, but a significant situation in the yoga of Savitri also. In the yoga of Savitri, when she has realized her soul, when she is going to feel the difficulty of the inconscient nature in which she has taken rebirth. She has taken rebirth in the inconscient nature. She has to suffer, she has to bear all its limitations, all its problems, all its difficulties. So, yes, you identified, okay, all right. But what about this nature, physical nature? Because vital, mental, physical, all those things are there. What about them? See? And at that point, she gets very clear instruction. She is told, annul thyself, that only God be. Annul thyself, that only God be. This is what we got here. 128.50. That is the most remarkable kind of instruction Savitri gives. Annul thyself, that only God may be. She is supposed to empty out herself fully. The most glorious kind of kenosis, the most luminous kind of nirvana. You are blowing out yourself fully. Nothing of it is left behind. Nothing. That is that annulment. That is the true significance, true meaning of nirvana. Buddha's nirvana would mean that basically, you see. And Savitri is told to that thing. Here also, it amounts to the same thing. I am God, all right, all is God. You have to empty out yourself fully first. That is the kenosis in the Christian language, if you want to put that way, you see. Nirvana and kenosis. That is what it means basically, you see. Kenosis means emptying out. Emptying out. Emptying out. Kenosis, kenosis means emptiness, self-emptying of one's will. Of one's will. Completely, of one's will. Jesus made himself nothing. He emptied himself out fully, that only God's will be. Yeah. I am nothing, no, do whatever. What mother says finally is what you will, what thou willest, succor to will. She keeps on chanting all the time. Succor to will. That is the most beautiful kind of kenosis, you see. What you will, you see. Pardon me? Yeah. Absolute surrender. Emptying. In fact, later on we shall see that thing in more detail also. When she is given this instruction, finally everything disappears, and even her body looks like a shell. And she gets what he says, formless liberation. Savitri is form, it's not form now, formless liberation, you see, completely. So there is nothing now. No, not even the form is present. Formless liberation. That is what she gets later. So she is now in a perfect state when the God's will can work fully in her. In other words, when she is facing death not as Savitri, but it is the will of God working through her that is acting at that point. So when that happens, then you have emptied out yourself fully, then the seed of Godhead sleeps in mortal earth. It is that seed which starts sprouting. It is that seed which starts flowering. The seed of Godhead then starts blooming. The seed of Godhead sleeps in mortal. It's there, but you have to empty out so that it springs up. The flower of Godhead grows on the world tree. All shall discover God in self and things. See, and thing in objective world, in the material world, everywhere, all. See, it is such a precise occult description of the whole thing, you see. And deepest kind of spiritual message, so to say, here, you see. All should discover God in self and things. But when God, well, this is what should happen. This is what the true emptying out should mean. But what happens in the meanwhile? But when God's messenger comes to help the world and lead the soul of earth to higher things, he too must carry the yoke he came to unloose. He has to suffer. He has to bear the burden of it. He too must bear the pang that would heal. Exempt and unafflicted by earth's fate, how shall he cure the lie? How shall he cure the ills he never felt? He has to experience the ill of this creation physically at that point. Then only he can cure that thing. It has to be a complete, full identification with the mortal creation. Then only it is possible. I think we'll read one passage from the Mother. It's a very beautiful, wonderful description Mother has given. Right in the beginning. 9th December 1953 is what she says. We'll read some parts of it. It's a long description, but very beautiful, very pertinent in this context also. See. Mother, she asked, Mother, suffering comes from ignorance and pain. But what is the nature of the suffering and pain the Divine Mother feels for her children? The Divine Mother is Savitri. What is the pain? If suffering comes from ignorance and pain, then if she is going to feel pain, is she ignorant? That is the implication. She is the Divine Mother, is she ignorant? If suffering comes from ignorance and pain, it is because, Mother says, it is because she participates in their nature. Participate, not that she is ignorant, she participates in their ignorance, in their nature. She has descended upon earth to participate in their nature. Because if she did not participate in their nature, she could not lead them farther and lead the soul of earth to higher things. He too must carry the yoke to unloose. See? If she remained in her supreme consciousness, where there is no suffering, in her supreme knowledge and consciousness, she could not have any contact with the human beings. She would not have the contact with the human beings. Then how can she really solve the problem of the human being if she remains there up, you see? And it is for this that she is obliged to take on the human consciousness and form. She is obliged to identify herself with human. It is to be able to enter into contact with them. Only she does not forget. She is divine, she does not forget. She is in ignorance. She is in ignorance does not mean that she is ignorant. She has adopted her consciousness, but she remains in relation with her own real supreme consciousness. And thus, by joining the two, she can make those who are in that other consciousness progress. By joining this, she can make others also progress, you see. But if she did not adopt their consciousness, if she did not suffer with their sorrow, she could not help them. Hers is not a suffering of ignorance. She is very clear now. Hers is not a suffering of ignorance. It is a suffering through identity. Now that is a miracle, how she can identify and yet remain, you see, to identity. It is because she has accepted to have the same vibrations as they in order to be able to enter into contact with them and pull them out of the state they are in. If she did not enter into contact with them, she would not be felt at all, or one could bear her radiance. If she would not take the same, you would not be able to feel her and bear her radiance, you see. Well, that is how she goes on and explains further. So this is exactly the description here we have got, basically, you see. Actually, Mother says that had she not identified herself, participated in the human process, she would not have been able to carry the mortal world further. She would not be able to do. Right in the beginning of Savitri, in the very first canto itself, December Dawn, when the problem of mortality was seen, that it is not able to make progress, then the omniscient goddess wanted to come and do whatever was to be done for that. The obstacle is standing in the path of the progress, and she wanted to come and remove that obstacle as omniscient goddess. But she found that not possible as omniscient goddess. She found that not possible. She has to come as Savitri. She has to take mortal birth. She must come, so to say, from up here. She must accept the full load of mortality by taking the mortal birth, by experiencing the whole process of mortality, and then take the event forward. Then it will be possible. My omniscient God is coming and operating and putting pressure. That is not going to solve the problem. It has to happen from it. She is sort of compelled to take the mortal birth. The omniscient goddess comes as Savitri. And then the whole story of Savitri unfolds. And there we are here now at this point. But when God's messenger comes to help the world and lead the soul of earth to higher things, he too must carry the yoke he came to unloose. He too must bear the pang that he would heal. Exempt and unafflicted by earth's fate, how shall he cure the ills he never felt? Exempt and unafflicted. That is how the omniscient goddess was trying to do. That is what she was trying to do. That wouldn't work. That wouldn't work. How shall he cure the ills? Therefore, she has to come here as mortal, taking the mortal. She must condescend to pass to the portals of the birth. That is a death. That is what we have got in that book, The Mother. And it goes on then. He covered the world's agony with his calm. Now the Savior who comes here, the God's messenger who comes here to save this world, he covered the world's agony with his calm. Yes, that is the quality, the spiritual quality of his, that yes, there is pain, there is death, there is ignorance and all that here, but he comes with such all-pervasive calm that nothing disturbs him. Nothing disturbs him. Calm. But though to the outward eye no sign appears, and peace is given to our torn human hearts, The struggle is there and paid the unseen price. The fire, the strife, the wrestle are within. The struggle is there and paid the price. The fire, the strife, the wrestle are within. So this is the real biography of the yogi. This is the biography of Ashtapati. This is the autobiography, Sri Aurobido's own experiences described here. This is what the struggle is there and paid the unseen price. He has paid the price. The fire, the strife, the wrestle are within. He carried the suffering world in his own breast. That is the identification with the world. He carried the suffering world in his own breast. Now, such a thing the omniscient goddess cannot do. You see, she would be able to do, see. He is sins way on his thoughts. His grief is his. As ancient load lies heavy on his soul. Ancient load lies heavy on his soul. Night and his powers beleaguer his tardy steps. The Titan adversary's clutch he bear. His march is a battle and a pilgrimage. Now this phrase, ancient, appears 2 or 3 times here in this context. Ancient load, you got what I got here. Ancient load is a little later on also in 49, 148, 49. 108.49. He meets an ancient adversary force. Ancient. Now this is 108.45 and then we have got 108.49. 49. Yeah, 4 sentences afterwards. Just a little below, just a little below. He meets an ancient adversary force. Ancient adversary force. And again a little further down, 108.57. An adversary force was born of old. In all the 3 places, you have got essentially the same thing: ancient load, ancient force, ancient adversary. Now, of course, the word ancient load, ancient does not mean that long before the history and that kind of a thing. Here the connotation is not that in that sense. Ancient means basically long-standing, which is long-standing, which has been there all along from the beginning, long-standing. So the word ancient here basically means that, long-standing. That load has been there all along, ancient. It is not that in a certain kind of an epoch it started. It is even beyond that. It is long-standing. It is there, so to say, right from the beginning, in that sense. As ancient load lies heavy on his soul. He, of course, stands again for the messenger. The Titan adversary's clutch he bears. His march is a battle and a pilgrimage. Life's evil smites. He stricken with the worst of pain. A million wounds gape in his secret heart. Of course, million basically means countless. Countless suffering. Now, countless suffering would not mean necessarily the suffering in a given particular incarnation. They have been there all along. They have been there all along, you see. All those wounds are there since the whole process through which he is moving. Not necessarily even in a given particular incarnation. Through the incarnations. A million wounds gave in his secret heart. He journeyed sleepless through an unending night. Now that is the unending night. That is what makes it throughout ancient. All that thing comes here. And antagonist forces crowd across his path. A siege, a combat is his inner life. We don't know. Sri Aurobindo says a work difficult and painful. He writes in 1912 to Motilal Roy, I am engaged in a work which is difficult and painful. Painful. That is the inner life. That's the combat. Even worse may be the cost, direr the pain. His large identity and all harboring love shall bring the cosmic anguish into his depths. He has become wide to encompass the agony of the entire creation, and therefore he has to bear all that. Worse may be the cost. He has to, it's not for his personal now, the cosmic depths. That is what is coming. The sorrow of all living things shall come and knock at his doors and live within his house. A dreadful cord of sympathy can tie all suffering into a single grief and make all agony in all the worlds his own, in all the worlds, in the vital, in the mental, in the subtle physical, wherever, in the higher spiritual, wherever is there, in all the world. All agony in all the worlds he has to bear. That is a cosmic load he is bearing in his soul. Again, he says the same thing, ancient adversary, you see, long-standing adversary. He meets an ancient adversary foes. Now, in the context of pain, you see, when the asura of bliss turned into suffering, it is he who is now coming and creating this affliction, this havoc. So it is that adversary, ancient adversary foe, one who turned into his opposite. The God of bliss, when he went far away from the Supreme Source, he turned into his opposite. Consciousness became unconsciousness. Life became death. Bliss became sorrow. When that separation took place, it is that ancient adversary which he has to meet now. In that sense, he is there right in the beginning. He is lashed with the whips that tear the world's worn heart. The weeping of the centuries visits his eyes. He wears the blood-glued fiery centaur's shirt. The poison of the worm has stained his throat. Now, these are very rapid transitions. The descriptions are from one epoch of history to another epoch of history. Very rapid. The weeping of the centuries visits his eyes because of the ancient sorrow, ancient adversary. He wears a blood-glued fiery centaur shirt, blood-glued fiery centaur shirt. Now that is the direct reference to the Greek mythology, centaur. The name of the centaur is Nissus, Nessus. Nissus. Now the background is briefly something like this. We know of the 12 labors of Hercules, 12 labors. Now, after finishing the 12 labors, so to say, he was carrying his wife to his place or whatever, and then he had to cross a river which was in spate, flooded river, full flooded river. Now, there was a difficulty. He could swim across the river, Hercules. There was no problem about him swimming the river through and go to the other shore. But what about his wife? Then this centaur was there, Nissus, and he was requested to ferry her across. uh, uh, across, you see, carry her across, you see, basically. And of course, he agreed. Centaurs are very lusty people and uh, fond of all kind of vital things, enjoyment, joy. And while he was crossing the river, he wanted to abduct her and take her away, that lady you see. And he did it, in fact. And when Hercules saw what was happening, he took an arrow with a poisonous snake on it and shot the arrow at Nisus, which pierced through his heart. And the poison got embedded into his heart. And still he was carrying, he knew what was happening now, the centaur, but he told this lady to take care of herself, and he gave his shirt to her as a protection from that thing, you see. And later on, when she started having an affair with somebody else, not with Hercules, this man got angry. Yeah, that lady. Then, then he became angry and all that kind. There was a kind of a fight, all that you see. And at that time, what she did was she played a trick. She gave the shirt to Hercules. Centaur shirt. She gave it to him. And without knowing, he put on that shirt, you see. But then that shirt was poisonous shirt, and it was burning his body, burning with fire as well as with poison. Burning his body, that shirt, you see, that. Huh? Well, he did not know. After wearing it, she also did not realize. She realized later on. She realized it later on, you see. She also did not know it. She realized it afterwards. By the time she realized it, it was too late. She sent a messenger also to Hercules. Stop, stop, stop. But he had already put on the shirt, you see. And in that process, then he died. Because of that, Hercules. He died because of that. Yeah. He died because of that, you see. So that is the centaur shirt, you see. Blood glued, fiery centaur's shirt, you see. I will read here a little description. A centaur's mighty gallant bow. Well, before we come to that, yeah. Nessus offered to ferry Hercules' wife across a torrent on his back. Nessus. Midway, his animal nature got the better of him. And he tried to force his attention on his passenger, on, on that lady, you see. She shrieked, and Hercules running after her, you see. He killed Nessus with a single arrow through the heart. Poisoned arrow, you see. Nessus told Deianira, that lady's name, as he lay dying, Nessus, as he lay dying, he told her, his blood would enforce that Hercules would be true to her forever. He cheated her. True forever. When her trust waned, she started attaching herself to somebody else. She spread the blood on his shirt and gave it to Hercules. Because she was in love with somebody else now. Huh? Because he has told her that he will be true to her. If he wears the shirt, he will be true to her. Uh, to her. Yeah, he believed that's right. Hercules lay dying slowly and painfully, and his shirt burned his skin, burned with fire and with poison. So that is the reference here. He wear the blood-glued, fiery centaur shirt. Narad has seen all that thing from above, see? And he's telling, this is what this is what the ancient adversary force does. In fact, this is the work of the ancient adversary force, basically, in that context. He has played a trick. And of course, Hercules died because he had put on that shirt later on. And he was well received in heaven by Zeus and all that. That is a separate thing because of the liver which he had put. But the cause of his death is this shirt. Otherwise, he was, so strong, he would have perhaps killed anybody, anywhere. You see. The poison of the world has stained his throat. Now, this is another reference. This is the Indian mythology. Nilakantha, Nilakantha, Shankara. He drank the poison of the world. In the churning of the sea, when the pot of poison came out, gods refused to drink it. Asuras refused to drink it as a gift. They would not touch it at all. It is Shankara, Shiva, who drank that poison, and therefore his throat has become stained. Neela. Neela means blue, blue throated. In fact, we have got that reference in blue throated in Canto 1 of Book 4. Now, there is another reference here. In the marketplace of matter's capital. Marketplace of matter's capital. There are actually, we can read 2 or 3 allusions in the marketplace to this one, marketplace, basically. Essentially, the first reference would be to Socrates. Socrates. Yeah. It is Socrates who brought the philosophy to marketplace. He was teaching the market to all his disciples in the marketplace. And finally, then he had to drink the glass of poison, hemlock. He brought it philosophy for people, but he had to drink that thing. Marketplace of matter's capital, amid the sufferings of the affair called life. So all these bargainings, all this haggling which goes on in the market, among them, what is happening? He is tied to the stake of a perennial fire. This messenger is tied to the stake of a perennial fire. See, these are very, very strong kind of indictments on the way in which we do things here, the sort of inquisitions, the sufferings we inflict on the saviors who come here in that context, you see. He is tied to the stake of a perennial fire. Now, stake of a perennial stake in the European history, the greatest example is Bruno being burned on the stake in a marketplace. In a marketplace. He was tied to the stake and burned alive because the Inquisition didn't accept his ideas. In fact, one of the reasons which is normally given is his insistence on the heliocentricity of the solar system. That sun is the center of the planetary system, not the earth, but solar system, sun, heliocentricity. And that was not acceptable to the Christian theology. Obviously, it is not acceptable. It cannot be accepted. There is a fallacy also in that, because the Bible says earth is the center of all these things. And if this man comes and says, no, not earth, but sun, then it means you are challenging Bible. You are challenging Bible. It means you are really knocking out the entire theological base of Christianity. By one single, you are knocking out the entire base. How can it be accepted? Burn him. Remove him off, you see. Pardon? Yeah, that's right. That is Bruno's fate, you see. Now that is normally the expression given, but I believe that it is not the question of astronomy, geocentricity or heliocentricity. It is not so important. It is the basic tenet of Christianity which is challenged by Bruno. Is it true? It is that which is challenged by that thing. Now, this thing is also, people have not really understood the meaning of geocentricity in Bible. In that little book, the mother, Sri Aurobindo says, the earth is a significant center of the universe. Significant center of the universe. It is the center for the process of evolution. It is significant because it is only here on earth that the psychic being is present. Nowhere in the entire cosmos. The psychic being is present only here on earth. And it is that which makes it a significant center. Earth a significant center. In fact, right in the first canto we have got earth, love, doom as the three disputants. Earth, love, and doom as the three wrestlers, disputants, fighting. Okay, we'll read that.
No, the word in
Doom,
English.
death.
No, the disputer.
Disputants.
Fighters.
Fighters.
Yeah.
Okay. Dispute.
In debate.
Yeah. Well, actually, it is a physical fight also in the arena. Yeah, 2.35. 2.35. 2.35. Now, he is describing the condition of Savitri. And then he says, all came back to her, to Savitri. She is weighing everything and she is now in a state where all came back to her. What are these all? Earth and love and doom. Doom of this creation. Earth, love and doom. The ancient disputants, again he says ancient. You see? See, this is significant. She is very consistent, you see. He is very consistent, Sri Aurobindo, see that way. The ancient disputants encircled her like giant figures wrestling in the night. That is what Savitri is, ancient disputants. Now, he says something very interesting also. The ancient disputants encircled her like giant figures wrestling in the night. The Godheads from the dim, inconscient born. All the three, earth and love and doom, are born from inconscience. Godheads from the dim, inconscient born. Yes, she is a goddess. Not the physical earth, she is the goddess. Doom, that is death. You can say death personified. Here in the context, the misfortune, the doom, and love. Yeah. And he says, born from the dim inconscient. The birth of earth the birth of doom, the birth of love, their birth is from inconscience. In the sense that doom we can easily understand, born from inconscience, no problem about that, you see. But how about earth and love being born of inconscience? That looks a little puzzling, that looks a little disturbing also to us, you see. But basically, what it means is that earth is born, is created as a specific center of activity in the field of inconscience. Earth is created to focus, to concentrate the entire effort of evolutionary growth in the field of inconscience. So her birth is in the context of inconscience. She has to inherit all that comes from inconscience. Otherwise, it doesn't serve the purpose, you see. It doesn't serve the purpose. She has to inherit all those things, inherit. And then love, how love is connected with inconscience. Well, that is a famous description that when the four powers went very far away from the Supreme and there was nothing but void, shunya, absolute void, then the divine plunged into that void. The divine plunged, seeing the horror of separation. The mothers use the phrase, the horror of separation. The divine plunged into the void. And that divine who has plunged into the void is love. It is out of his love that he has taken the station in the void. Love for this creation. He has taken that station. And that love, the divine who has plunged into the void, that love, Mother says, is none but Satyavan. It is he who is stationed in the void, personified as Satyavan. So we can see very clearly earth and love and doom, the ancient dispute, and therefore naturally wherever there is love, there is bound to be doom. And where? In the context of the earth. All the ancient dispute encircled her like giant figures wrestling in the night. The goddess from the dim inconscient born. So that is what we have here.
The longest journey.
Pardon?
Our journey is really the longest because it comes from the inconscient. Everything else doesn't take that long.
Yeah.
But really, from the inconscient and that darkness,
Yeah.
to come
We have come to this point. It's a
we are
wonderful.
coming from the furthest possible point. It's not fair, no?
You know, but how do you say? It's a very joyous thing. No, you don't like. You don't like it. You're not happy. I think the fact that we have come to here, it means that we have been sort of happy.
We are having the worst behind us, you think?
Yeah.
We have the worst
He is tied. He is tied to the stake.
But now we have hope.
No, I think we have accepted this thing with joy.
Not always.
No, we have to experience the joy of the opposite. In fact, that is what Narada is going to tell later on. It is your choice, O mortal. It is your chosen choice that you have come this mortal birth. You wanted to experience the joy, the newness of this possibility of the divine. So, it is a joy to experience the whole process, you see.
Can I
Sorry,
ask you
Amma.
a question very, very curious? We can say curious in English. Yes. You yourself, you lived all your life in Savitri.
Yes.
Could you, because of this,
Joy.
apply, yes, this what you are saying, always you take the life with joy?
Yes, of course.
Really?
Yeah, why not?
Because of Savitri, no?
Yeah.
Because of
See,
Savitri.
I mean,
Really, he could. Then it says really for us it's painful.
Yes.
It's not
Yes,
always joy.
yes. Whatever I have said, he never grumbled about anything.
Wow.
That,
No,
that I have observed it. What is wrong in it? What is there? Why you feel like that? Don't think like that.
Always, it's wonderful. It's really, we could, because of Savitri you are like this, no? I mean, you could be transformed like this, but
Not
it's
transformed.
wonderful to do.
I mentioned a few sentences ago, Sri says, a million wounds he suffered,
Yes.
the journey is painful.
yeah.
It's not joy.
Yeah, well, see, it's a part of joy.
Suffering is a fantastic way.
One has to learn, see, one has to learn to enjoy even that kind of a pain.
Very good.
Well,
I like it.
I can tell you one thing. It's easy to talk about it. It is easy to talk about it.
How easy to talk about it.
That is where
Yeah,
it's
I know.
okay. But still, I think that is required. That is where we have to move.
Yes.
Maybe in a certain mental way we are approaching it. To a certain extent, the vital also prepares itself to that. Even the body starts feeling it when it is under pain and suffering. You feel something different also at the same time. It is an experience also, see. He meets an ancient adversary force. He is lashed with the whip that tear the world's worn heart. The weeping of the centuries visits his eyes. He wears the blood-glued fire his centaur shirt. The poison of the world has stained his throat. In the marketplace of matter's capital, amid the sufferings of the affair called life. So all that bargaining which you do, give and take for vital exchanges and all that you see. He is tied to a stake, to the stake of a perennial. See, this is the beauty of it. Wait, fire. It is a capital fire, Agni, the divine Agni. You are tied to the divine Agni. It is not ordinary fire to which you are tied. It is the divine Agni to which you are tied. He is tied to the stake of a perennial fire. He burns on an unseen original world that matter may be turned into spirit stuff. See, what more glorious, what more joyous can there be anything than matter turning into spirit stuff? If by this process, if this is to happen, can there be anything more joyous than that? That is the greater joy. And if one has to go through a process, well, it's good, it's a joyous process. If you see only a small segment of the whole process, you will feel pain, suffering, that kind of a thing. But when you see the entire perspective, you see, it's not like that. You see. He is a victim in his own sacrifice. Now, this is, you see, we have been talking of marketplace, we have talked of Bruno. There is a reference also in this perennial fire, there is a reference also here to the Vedic description, perennial fire. There is a narration in the Veda, in the Rig Veda, of a rishi, Sunashepa. Sunah, S-U-N-A-H, S-H-E-P-A, Sunashepa. You not heard, I will explain to you. Sunashepa. Now, in the Veda, he is described as being tied to a post with 3 cords and burned there. The perennial fire is burned there. Sunashepa. It is a sacrifice which is offered to the divine. Offered. Now, the description is very transparent Sunashripa is tied to the stake and he will be burned there alive, tied with 3 cords. The triple cord, the triple cord, the vital, the mental, the physical. He's tied with the mind with that post. He's tied with the vital with that post. He's tied with the physical with that post. Completely. And it is these which have to be burned off. It is these which have to disappear. Sunaship. That is the sacrifice which is described in the Veda. You see, the Vedic description is bound to 3 pillars, invokes the Sunashripa invokes, O Aditya, that is sun god. He invokes, he is bound there, O Aditya, O Varuna, very vast, O king, that is Indra. He is tied there and he is invoking them. Release him from the bondage, this triple bondage of the mental, the vital, the physical. Burn them. He cries out to Varuna to save him, bound to the stake with 3 cords, one on the top, one in the middle. See, the description is very precise. One in the middle, and the third below. The mental, the vital, the physical below. Mind shuts out. Why? What does mind do? It will shut us out from the spiritual realms. It will not allow us to enter into the spiritual realm. It will put its own curtain, its own walls. It shuts out. That is the mental cord. Same way, vital, our ego, our subconscious nature and all that will come in the way of the divine working in our system. And the physical, with its inertia, with its tamas, with its incapacity to receive the divine, it is that which is tying him down also. So the physical, the vital, the mental, these are the 3 cords by which he is bound completely. And he is now invoking, burn me, perennial fire, the eternal fire, the divine Agni. Yes, I would like to be sacrificed and get burnt, that all these things disappear from me completely. Perennial fire, the divine Agni. That is what he is praying there on this one. So you see here in one description you have got centaur shirt, you have got marketplace, you have got perennial fire. You see how rapidly the whole poetry also moves from age to age. You see, it is not bound by this description, that description. It has the whole canvas available to paint whatever it wants to paint. You see. Simultaneously, all the 3 things coming together. You see, in one picture. I don't know whether you can draw all the 3 in one picture. Yeah. The fire, the blood glued fiery centaurs, then the blue-throated ascetic, you see, the stained throat, you see, that is the second one. And then the marketplace is the third one. And then the 4th is stake. All these things are coming in the same context. The sacrifice which the Purusha is offering to the divine after taking his birth here. Sunashripa's story is a famous story in the Veda, actually. And then later on they have built up many other stories based on that, you see. He, the victim, in his own sacrifice, yajna, sacrifice here, yajna. You have killed the fire and you are offering yourself in that fire. The immortal, bound to earth's mortality, appearing and perishing on the roads of time, creates God's moment by eternity's beats. That is what you really create now, God's moment here in a small span of time. He dies that the world may be newborn and live. He dies that the world may be newborn and live. That is the sacrifice he makes. He has to die. Now, this is again absolutely autobiographical. He dies for what? That the world may be newborn. That is sacrifice on 5th December 1950. Even if he escapes the fiercest fires, even if the world breaks not in, a drowning sea only by a hard sacrifice is high heaven earned. It's because only by sacrifice that you can really win heaven, not otherwise. Nothing is gained in this creation without yajna, without sacrifice. Nothing is gained. He must face the fight. The pang would conquer hell. Now, this is what Savitri has to do. She must face the fight to conquer hell. A dark, concealed hostility is lost in human depths. Yes, it is there in us right from the beginning. It has been there all along. In the hidden heart of time that claims the right to change and mar God's work. That is what it has been doing. The hostility is what is going to mark God's work. It is there, seated in us all the while, is there. A secret enemy. So that hostility is a secret enemy. Ambushes the world's march. So suddenly from behind you jump and stop the march. It leaves a mark on thought and speech and act. Yes, if you have got that hostility, it will show in your action, in your thinking, in your feelings, everywhere. It leaves a mark on thought and speech and act. It stamps, stain and defect. All things are done. So even if you do beautiful things, that hostility will be there. There is no visible foe, but the unseen is round us. Yes, that invisible foe is there all around us. Forces intangible besiege, touches from alien realm, thoughts not our own, overtake us and compel the erring heart. Our lives are caught in an ambiguous net. Now, this is a little difficult thing to understand. Around us our lives. This is what Narad is saying all along. He is round us. Poor fellow, I don't know how does he say around us, he has come from heaven. See, how does he say around us? Our lives, he is not living our life, you see. Pardon me? He knows it. No, but that can be known only by identification, by experiencing it.
But he has lived on
Yeah, that's right.
before.
Exactly. That's the point. Yeah. He has that thing. Therefore, that identity is there intact with him. You see. He is around us, our lives. You see, and then he says, an adversary force was born of old. The ancient, you see, this is another paraphrasing, age old, long standing, age old. An adversary force was born of old. Invader, now this of course born of old right from the beginning of the creation. When the God of bliss changed into God of suffering, all this has happened. That is the birth of this adversary force. Invader of the life of mortal man, it hides from him the straight, immortal path. Our path is really the climbing path of immortality. Both ways. We rising to immortality coming in us. But that is kept hidden by the adversary force. That path is kept hidden. And in fact, in the Rigveda, we have a lot of references of this fight between the hostile and the godly. It goes on constantly. It hides from him the straight, immortal path. A power came in to veil the eternal light. Yes, a power opposed to the eternal will, divert the messages of the infallible word, contort the contours of the cosmic plan. So this power which came, how did it come? They seen last time earlier. When life entered into matter, suddenly something from below arose and challenged the life. Who are you to enter into matter? Who are you? How can you change without recognizing me here in matter? The response from below to the entry of life from above was the response of death. Life met death. A power came to veil the eternal light. So when light started coming from above, then it made a challenge of darkness from below. A power opposed the eternal will, divert the messages of the infallible word, contours and contours of the cosmic plan. So there is a kind of an alliteration, C, contours and contours the cosmic plan, C, all that. A whisper leads to evil human heart. Well, a whisper leads to evil the human heart. Now this is the reference again to Adam and Eve. The serpent comes and whispers something in the ear of Eve. Yes, there is a fruit there, there is a tree there, tree of knowledge. Why don't you go and taste it? It's very beautiful, very tasty. The serpent, Satan, he takes the form and whispers in her ear. Whisper, and she is lured. Whisper lures to evil the human heart. She is enamored by it. It seals of wisdom's eyes. So whatever wisdom was there in her, that got sealed off. The soul's regard, it is the origin of our suffering here. So there you are. It binds earth to calamity and pain. That lure, it is that which binds us. So if you have overcome the lure, then you are free of calamity and pain. This all must conquer who would bring down God's peace. Now, this is mandatory. This is the state of affairs here described, Narad. The divine comes, the sacrifice and all that thing, etc. And if he has to do that thing, he must conquer all this. How? By first bringing down God's peace. This hidden foe lodged in the human heart, human breast, man must overcome or miss his higher fate. If you are not in a position to overcome this fate, then you are done for. There is no salvation for you. This is the inner war without an escape. You can't escape this war. Yeah, this is the end of the section, yeah. This is the hidden foe lodged in human heart. So the mandate is this all must conquer who would bring down God's peace. God. Savitri has to bear the suffering, has to bear the pain. She must conquer in order to bring down God's peace. She was offered boon and she says, Lord, your peace. She was given 4 boons, and one of the boons is the boon of peace. Savitri received from the Supreme. Bring down God's peace. This all must conquer who would bring down God's peace. This hidden foe lodged in the human breast, man must overcome. So this is an obligation on us, that you can't help it. If you are not in a position to overcome it, then you miss your higher fate. Make a choice. This is the inner war, and nobody can escape from that war. You have to fight out the war. So fight it out joyously, happily, merrily, like a brave hero, warrior, you see, fight it out. And there is joy in fighting it out, you see. Yeah. So this is the first answer Narad has made. Rather, these are the two answers Narad has made to the queen's question. That first part of this answer is pain is the hammer of God. It is by pain that you are sculpted. You are built up into a beautiful statue because of the pain. He is the hammer of God. That is the first part of Narad's answer. Second part is, yes, everybody has to bear pain. You cannot escape pain. The divine himself comes, he gets crucified, all that. He is tied to the stake. He drinks the poison. All the things he does, all that thing, in order to make progress. This all must conquer. So that is the second part. So Savitri, if she has come with a mission, she has to bear the pain of this creation. She has to make a sacrifice, inner sacrifice of her being. She must annul herself totally. That is the sacrifice. She must empty herself out fully. All that inconscient nature which is there, of which is built up here in the mortal birth, that must be removed, that inconscient, so that only God may be. So that is the answer. Then, of course, comes the third argument. The word is demon's task. He comes, suffers pain. Then the third is the word demon's task. What does it do? What it is. Hard is the word demon's task. We take up next time from this point forward. So this is the third point Narada is making. The whole section is now devoted to the word redeemer's task. Then after that, he tells her, yes, all this, but don't take the Titan's road. Take the road of God. He tells her, don't take the Titan's road. That is the fourth point Narada is making in the next section, 110. And in the 11th section, he tells to the queen clearly, look, it was your choice, you had chosen to be here. Don't complain, don't blame me for all that. You haven't a choice. Why you are complaining now? Why you are grumbling? You please go through the whole process. We'll just say very quickly how he says that. .111. 111. This is the last and fifth argument Narada makes. See, O mortal, he is addressing to the queen, who complains of death and fate, accuse none of the harms thyself hast called. You have called this harm upon yourself. See, don't accuse others. This troubled world thou hast chosen for thy home. Thou art thyself the author of thy pain. Don't blame God. It is your God who, no, you are the author of your pain. Once in the immortal boundlessness of self, you are up there in the transcendent, happy, beautiful, luxurious, and all that kind of thing. Once in the immortal boundlessness of self, in a vast of truth and consciousness and light, you are in Satchidananda. Once. The soul looked out from its felicity, from that world of happiness, it looked out all around from there. It felt the spirit's interminable bliss. Everywhere, the bliss of the spirit, everywhere. It knew itself deathless, timeless, spaceless, one. It saw the eternal, lived in the infinite, up there. Then, curious of a shadow thrown by truth. From above, the truth has thrown a shadow in the inconscience, in the void. And that soul up there became curious of the shadow. What is the shadow of the truth here? What is it for here? What is it doing here? Then, curious of a shadow thrown by truth, is strained towards some otherness of self. It was drawn to an unknown face, peering to the night. So it was drawn into the night. It sends a negative infinity. The truth shadow, it sends a negative infinity of God Himself, or truth. A voice supernal whose immense excess, imitating God and everlasting time, offered a ground for nature's adverse birth. And matter's rigid hard unconsciousness, harboring the brilliance of a transient soul that lies of birth and death and ignorant life. So it became curious of that, and he said, okay, let me experience what it is, what kind of joy it is. Let me experience it, let me feel it, let me taste it, let me enjoy it. So that is the great adventure. He says, oh mortal who complains, you have chosen this thing yourself. You are the author of your own pain, not anybody else. So don't blame God, he says, you see. Otherwise you have a choice. You could have been always up there in the transcendent.